Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar on tracking assignments with Google Workspace. Today, we're going to be digging into some of the features of Google that can help you make your own personalized assignment tracking system. And we're going to play with a few ways that you can use Google Sheets, Google Docs, and GCal in conjunction with one another. Right now, you should be able to see my Google Sheets. I wanted to start with Google Sheets because this is where you can have the most control over seeing a large quantity of assignments in one space. So I have here a totally blank Google Sheet. In the past, I've done webinars where we've gone over how to go up to File, New from Template Gallery, and take a look at a lot of the pre-made assignment tracking spreadsheets. So if you're interested in that, take a look at our YouTube page. But Google Sheets has gotten pretty smart in the last couple of years, and now they have the ability to add a bunch of pre-built tables that I think makes it even easier to customize to create your own assignment tracker based on what you need. So we're going to start by inserting one of their tables on this blank sheet. So we'll go up to Insert, click on Pre-built Tables. And then we have a whole bunch of options here. If you take a look, you can see that they have these tables that have different categories. I'm going to go for a pretty basic one here called event tasks, which we're just going to insert, and we're going to go over how we can customize this. So what I like with this particular table template is the categories are kind of in line with what I want to include personally. We have our task. For me, this is where I'm going to put my assignment. So I can even change that. We have up here in the bar, it says task. I change that to assignment. Status. I like this as it is, where this can tell us not started, in progress, completed. Blocked is also an option there. There are two here I'm not as interested in. One is owner. This is for if you're sharing this with a group, and I am not. This is for me. So I'm actually going to go ahead and delete this column, which is one of the great features of Google Sheets. So I'm going to come up here to see and click on the little arrow and go down to this option, delete column. Easy. It's gone. It's in the past. We have stage, which again, this is for an event. I don't really need this, but we'll come back to this. And then we have due date, perfect, and notes, also perfect. Stage, this is not something that I want necessarily, but this is an area that I can use to kind of add more information. So instead of deleting this, I'm going to change this to class. That's because my intention with this particular sheet is I'm going to put bunch of assignments for several different classes, and I want to be able to categorize them either by which class they're a part of or by their due date. That's one of the reasons I love Google Sheets for this, because you can sort it in multiple ways. So right now, the categories for class are pre-event, day of, or post-event, which is not what I want. I can change these by clicking on, when I click on the little drop down here, so the little arrow next to the purple in this case, we have our options, and then at the bottom, we have a little edit button. So I'm going to click on this, and that will bring over on the side my options. So classes, we're going to be working today with Writing 101. I might also say Econ, say Spanish, and then you can also play with colors as well. You can add more categories. And here, this is going to, these old ones appear as not valid because we've changed it. So once we make them to new categories, it's going to work a lot better. Due date is pretty self-explanatory. We can go ahead and put in our date. We can either type it or we can go to a calendar, and notes, we can add whatever info we want. So to get us started, I did want to look at, as I mentioned, Writing 101. So something that I did, and we can just clear all of that. We're going to start over. We have our beautiful template that we're going to work with. And then I am going to jump over to a fall 25 syllabus. So this is a syllabus that is for Writing 101, one of my classes. This is a syllabus that, oh, great question. We had a question of how you clear. To clear content, you just highlight it and then press backspace. But yeah, again, with clearing, it's pretty easy. You just highlight and delete. So it's super, super intuitive in terms of just getting rid of that content. And because it's a smart document, the formulas stay here. So it's not going to delete these categories, which is nice. So in terms of the syllabus, it can be helpful to add your syllabi to Google if you want to be able to work with them in this format. You can often add PDFs in your Drive, which I'm going to click over to Drive. If you click on the new at the top, you can do a file upload. And that's how I uploaded this file. You also don't need to have your syllabus here in Google Docs, but for this one, I'm just going to show you a few features of a Google Doc that can be helpful. But for now, we're just going to use this to get the content that we need. So we're scrolling, we have our overview of the course. We're scrolling down to our major writing assignments. So when it comes to keeping track of your assignments, I recommend that students do two things. One is to input the deadlines for all of the major assignments throughout the course of the semester. So that means your tests, your papers, your presentations, assignments that you need more than 3 days to work on, and assignments that you might need to put more effort into because of the amount that they are due to your final grade. So for this course, I'm just going to scroll ahead in the syllabus. I have these major writing assignments, and then if we go ahead, I have pages and pages of just regular homework assignments. It's not really worthwhile to go through at the beginning of the semester and enter in every single homework assignment because of what I like to call the snow day effect. Let's say it's January, you have 3 snow days, and then all of a sudden your syllabus is off. Your professor ends up dropping readings, or they might change something. But having all of that information in there, the effort isn't necessarily worth the accuracy. It can also be helpful to take time once a week to go in and enter in your homework, just task by task, week at a time, so that you know what's coming up. Whereas with these bigger assignments, so I have here like 4-ish writing assignments, it can be helpful to enter them in all at once so that they don't creep up on you or take you by surprise. For example, I have a major essay due Friday, October 24th. I would want to know about that earlier than October 20th. So let's start by just entering in that one. We'll say we'll just call this writing assignment two because I'm basically copy and pasting this info for my future self. What is it that future me will want to know about? So I'm just copying this name mainly because I'm lazy. I could just type it. So we have writing assignment two. I'm going to do values only because I want to avoid pasting format in here. Like when you paste, you can go to paste special value only versus format only. Format means you're pasting that it's bold. But when dealing with this kind of document, I want to avoid pasting format because this is so heavily formatted. Everything here is smart text, so to speak, so I don't want to mess with that. The status for this, not started, obviously, because it's due in October. My class, Writing 101. Due date, I'm just going to type in, I think it was the 24th. And then notes. What do I want to put in notes? This is completely up to you, but what I want to put in notes is information about the assignment in a way that can make it easier for me to access this later in the semester. So this is where we get into the piece of working with Google Docs that can be fun to make it easier. Basically, I want to paste this whole assignment there so that I know it. There are a few ways I could do this. I could just copy this and paste the text and put it in notes. That would be a lot. I could make a new document and paste it in there. But for me, the easiest thing to do is instead of copying this content, I'm going to link to this assignment in the syllabus. So what I'm going to do is highlight this assignment, writing number two, forwarding analysis, and I'm going to create a bookmark. So I go up to Insert and scroll down to Bookmark. And there we go. And so now essentially I can link to this exact spot, just as you would a page in a book, to make it easier to access this. And right here, when you click on the little bookmark, there's an option here to copy the link. I'm going to click on that. And now I have a link to this copied. So I'm actually going to go to notes and I am going to paste a link to not only this file, but this specific place. So when I click on this, it'll take me to this specific assignment. So I think this is a really great way to make it easy to access this content while also not just creating infinite documents. Instead, I'm working with two. I have the syllabus because it's already there. I don't need to rewrite it, but it can be difficult to kind of move through all of the content every time I want to look at anything. So another great element of this is that I can add specific readings as well as I want to. So going back to my syllabus, what we want to do is add all of these assignments, which let's go ahead and we'll add one more major one. We're going to do writing assignment number 3. And I'm going to get rid of countering because that will have no meaning to me at this point. Not started. Writing 101. The due date is the 21st. Eek. And then notes, I want to do the same thing where I bookmark it. Insert, bookmark, copy link. And then here, we're just going to paste. And then I'm going to do that again because I want it to come up. There we go, just by its name. And then when we click on this, it'll take me again to that specific spot, which is great. We also want to put in our homework assignments for the coming week, which this is a great way to, again, just sort of keep abreast of what you have to do that week by kind of looking ahead and having a time, usually like Sunday, Friday afternoon, Sunday morning, sometime in the weekend when you want to do a check-in. If your goal is to look over all of your syllabi and Canvas pages, etc., for 1 week and see, okay, what major assignments do I have coming up? And what day-to-day homework do I need to work on? So for this content, there's a lot of different ways to enter this in here. If you want to link to 1 week, you can do that. For me, I'd probably prefer to be more specific about what the reading is. So today's Wednesday. We're going to look at what do I have due Friday. I have due a reading that is this PDF. So what I can do is go ahead and say, I can be as detailed as I want. So this is called hyper and deep attention. I can write that, or I can just say reading. For now, say hyper deep. For this, we've got our not started. We've got our writing 101. That is due the 5th. And then our notes. What do we want to put? We can put a lot of content. If it was in a textbook, you could just have a note of textbook. But for this, since it's a PDF, I could actually probably link this. So if I copy this link URL, this again, if I've added this link, this PDF, even if it's available in a separate place in my on my Canvas page in a different file, you can add these PDFs to Drive or download them and link them here. So if I put this here and I've added it to Drive, now I can go right to the reading. So a lot of folks like to do this step over the weekend when you're kind of looking ahead because it can save you time later on. Like, what do you have to read? How long is this reading? Like, what do you need to have prepared in order to plan it? And one thing that some folks like to do as well is instead of saying their due date, say the date that they want to work on it. So kind of changing this and helping figure out when you're going to work on what can be a great approach to planning this. So in terms of this sheet, I mentioned what I really like about these are the way that you can sort of arrange things in different ways. Okay. So if I click on due date and this little arrow next to it, and I go to sort column, sort A to Z, now it's rearranged everything by due date. So that means that I can have something from econ and Spanish that's due, we'll say 9-7 or 10-7. And I can either view these based on class. So if I go to class, sort column, sort A to Z, now I see here's all my econ, Spanish, here's all my writing. Or I can pivot back to due date. Click on the arrow, sort column, sort A to Z. Now I can see what I have due this week versus the future. So I think that's a really useful aspect of this. And again, setting up all of your major assignments for the semester is going to be a great way to kind of keep track of everything at one time. Something else that when you're working with a lot of different classes and having these master documents, it can be useful to create a Google Workspace. Let's see. So we're going to close this for now. So this is kind of a newer feature. It's only, I'm going to say it's come out in the last year or so, but a Google Workspace, it's basically just a little hub. You won't have this with free Google, but with Georgetown's full Google suite, you will have access to this. Basically, if you look on your left-hand menu bar, we have Home, Activity, and then we have the Workspace option. You may need to go up to Settings, this little gear, and activate it. But a workspace is basically just a place to put all your files for one category. So if I want to create a workspace by clicking Create Workspace, I'll call this Fall Semester. You can add files to this that will be kind of affiliated with, there we go, I was having a moment, affiliated with a certain category. So if I want to add my fall 25 assignment tracker and my hyper deep attention reading and my syllabus, I can kind of add all of those here. And then I'll just say done. So that means when I go to Drive and I click on Workspace, my fall semester assignments will be available right here. With that, there is a limit to how many you can keep in a workspace. I think it's like 25 files, but I don't think that's a bad thing. It's sort of a way to force yourself to not be a digital hoarder, which is a common problem of mine personally. I also wanted to show you a few ways that we could sort of play with Google Calendar in terms of creating an accountability system for yourself to help yourself stay involved in knowing what's due when. If you haven't dealt with Google Calendar yet, it will probably become a big part of your Georgetown future because it is Georgetown's go-to way for scheduling things. It's your email. That's why we're here talking about Google right now. But Calendar has a lot of great features for keeping track of what you need to do. And we're going to explore two avenues. One, we'll come back to events, but one feature that a lot of folks don't know about is tasks. So up on in the the upper right hand corner of calendar, the default view is this left hand little picture of a calendar. But if we click on this circle with a little check mark in it, this can lead to our task list, which can basically be our assignment tracker or our to-do list more specifically. So if I were to say I have a paper due on, we can make it a specific date. I have a paper due on Monday. I can give it a certain time. We'll say 9:30 a.m. If I have a recurring paper due, I can make it repeat, which is a nice little detail, but for now we'll just say Monday the 8th. There we go. And we can provide details here. So we can, if we want to go back here, copy link. And then we click on these little lines under here. We have the details. We can include info there as a detail and it will link us there. It just won't be as pretty. Something else that's kind of interesting is we can add subtasks as well. So within a task, we can say that maybe I want to outline. And I can assign myself a date for when I want to do that. So if the paper is due Monday, maybe I want to outline on Friday. Yeah. And then I'll set a time for this as well. You don't have to set a time, say 9 a.m. Sure. So I like that you can kind of have a major task and these subtasks as well. I bet it will happen one day, but at this point, Google can't naturally correlate between a list here and a list in tasks. There are a lot of add-ons you can add that will allow you to kind of see a list like this in task or calendar view, but I don't necessarily um, prefer using those right now because they change so much, and Google is so rich on its own. But for now, one thing that I think makes it easier to add a big list like this, I'm going to sort this by class again. There we go. Is I might hide status in class for a moment. I do this by going up to B, and if I click on the arrow, the side arrow, and click on hide column, it disappears, but it's still there. All I need to do is go back up to these little arrows and it's still there. You're not deleting it, you're just kind of making it hide for a minute. So if I hide these two, and I just want to copy, paste. So I highlight these three assignments and these three dates, and I copy them. And I go back to my task list and I click back on add a task and I paste. These will appear as three separate tasks. So it hasn't intelligently added the date. I would need to go in and add the date. And I'm going to set a time, 11 a.m. But it will add it to the list, which can make it a little bit easier to add these things manually. So why do we like these tasks so much? If we're going to go back up to this top upper corner where we went to task on one side, and now we're going to click on the switch to calendar view where I have my blank calendar. And on the left-hand side, I have a lot of calendars over here because I am in Google a lot. But there are different Google calendars that you can click on and off. You might just have one that has your name. But what you can do is actually view your task calendar. You can also view it in a list. First, if we go over to the right-hand side and we see this symbol, the circle with a check mark, that's Google sign for tasks, and we click on that, here comes our task list. We can look at it, we can add to it. And I like to note that you can do that because you can also view this in Gmail as well. It has a similar little symbol. But you can also, if you've been adding the time and the date, you can also view this on your calendar. So I'm going to click on tasks. I'm going to turn on this calendar. And now we see that these different deadlines appear in the calendar. And we're looking at this by week view. If we go up and look at it month view, we see that we had a few that I put in that have specific times. I didn't go that far, but if you don't put the times, it won't appear here. And then if I click on it, you will see this link that I had here. So that's a pretty great way to have a good plan, but also be able to see it in a visual way. And I have these subtasks, they appear here as well. Again, as long as you're putting that specific, the specific date. Otherwise, it won't appear on here. It'll just appear on your task list. So that's what I was looking for, this one from October 24th, but that's not on here because I didn't assign the date. But that can be a really great way to kind of treat this both as a checklist, but also to stay organized. A different way to make sure that you're keeping track of your assignments is to add events instead of adding these tasks. So let's say I wanted to add this paper that's due October 24th. I could go up to create, and we have here the option to create a task if we wanted to do what we've been doing. Looks like this. But if we want to create an event, which is what we'll do, we'll say writing 101 paper due. We know this is due October 24th. And let's say that this class is at 11 a.m., so it's due at 11 a.m. Here on this straightforward page, we can kind of add your description. If you want to add an attachment, you can do so. If you want to link, you can do so. I can just kind of drop in here. I thought I had my link. I didn't, but you can drop in there whatever info that you want to. And that can be great. What I really like to do is go down to more options. And often with our deadline trackers, we're very focused on when something is due, and we're not focused on when we should begin working on it. So for this is due October 24th, but I want to focus here on these notifications that are further down here. There's a default notification on Google Calendar. It is that you get a little ding 10 minutes before an event, but you can modify this. If instead of a notification, I wanted to get an email, so like a text reminder that something happening. And if I have a paper due, I don't know if I'd want the reminder in 10 minutes. I would want it 10 days. So I can click add notification and add multiple. You could say, can we say 10 weeks? No, it's too many. 0 and 4 weeks. We could say 4 weeks. I think that's a little overkill for this. But so this way, I'll get a reminder that this is happening well before it's due. Instead, I'll get reminded when I want to start working on it, which, as much as I am going ahead and saying 4 weeks, I think it can be helpful to have that deadline notice maybe on a day when you might actually look at this. So if it's a Saturday and then I link to that syllabus description, then all I have to do is sit down and read that syllabus description. Another element of this that can be helpful is you can change your calendar. So you can have a calendar just for your classes, for major assignments. And with different calendars, you can change the colors. So if I wanted to add this to my study schedule, which we'll save, oh, here's my study schedule. This is something, and now here it appears on Friday the 24th. The study schedule over here on the left, where the task calendar was, we can also click that on and off. So we can, if we go to today, right now we have tasks and we have our study schedule, and we can just look at one at a time. So that can be helpful. You see I have a major assignment calendar. That can be helpful if you just want to view one class at a time, or if you want to view all of those major deadlines, especially if you want to look at that month view and see, oh my gosh, when is everything due? So how do we add that? We can go up to settings. So that's the little gear, click on settings. And then over on the left-hand bar, we see an option for add calendar, and we can create new calendar. So we make our name, we can make our calendar. So that's how, if we wanted to call this writing 101, and we'll just make our calendar creation in progress. It's all very exciting. Um, and then, whoops, not what I wanted to do. And then over here, it'll appear as a new calendar. So if we wanted to make things related to that, we could add it to that calendar, which is going to make things a lot easier. And even with different elements, if we go to this writing 101 paper, right now it's on study schedule, we could add it to our writing 101 calendar and it'll appear in a different color. So again, we can click that on and off based on what we want to look at. There's also a way to add your Canvas calendar to Google Calendar by also going into settings. If you have a question about that, take a look at our YouTube page. It's one of our YouTube shorts on how to do that. Very easy. But again, that's sort of just a great way to get yourself organized using Google Suite, starting with Sheets to take a look at all of your assignments. This is, again, a great tool because you can customize it, but it's not so complicated that you can't kind of just jump in and start clicking around. If you do want something that is a little more in depth, take a look at, again, on our YouTube page, we have a previous webinar on Notion. Notion, you can get very advanced with it, but there's also kind of a sharp learning curve, which I personally find difficult and I needed to study in order to get better at Notion. But thank you all so much for joining me today. If you have any questions, feel free to add them to the chat. Otherwise, good luck getting organized, and hopefully we'll see you at our next webinar in a few weeks on developing a procrastination action plan. All right, thank you all so much.